Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating source text by Ryuho Okawa called The Laws of Courage. We're going to be taking quite the journey today. We'll be starting right down here on the ground, looking at the everyday struggles we all face, and then we are zooming all the way out to a massive cosmic worldview presented by the author. It's a profound shift in perspective, so let's just dive right into it.
Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this for a second. Have you ever felt just completely exhausted by the endless competition of modern life? You know that feeling, right? Like society is just this hyper-competitive, individualistic machine that leaves you feeling incredibly isolated? It can often feel like a zero-sum game. If you win, I have to lose. And honestly, constantly fighting that battle can leave us feeling totally disconnected from the people around us. And that feeling brings us perfectly to our source material today. Now, what's so interesting to me about the laws of courage is how it's actually structured. If you read the early chapters, they offer very grounded, hard-hitting advice on mental endurance. It's all about bouncing back from failure and dealing with toxic people. But then, right at chapter 5, the text completely flips the script. It pivots away from everyday advice and delivers this reality-altering paradigm shift that reframes literally everything it just talked about. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll go from daily setbacks to a cosmic perspective that unpack the tree of life metaphor, look at leaves and soulmates, and finally, what it means to be living truly.
All right, part 1, daily setbacks in our competitive society.
So, the author starts by grounding his philosophy in the harsh, undeniable realities of daily life. The earlier sections of the book tackle the fact that, well, failure is inevitable. He talks about how human relationships can easily turn toxic, devolving into what the text actually calls a hell of jealousy, where people are just dragging each other down to climb the social ladder. The initial advice here is all about grit. It tells you to maintain this resilient, hungry spirit, to push through the adversity and survive the battlefield of modern individualism. It's really practical advice, but according to the author's later chapters, simply surviving just isn't enough.
Moving right along to section 2, shifting to a cosmic perspective.
Okay, so here's where the text throws that massive curveball I mentioned. Chapter 5 makes a really bold claim. To actually overcome our earthly struggles, you can't just try harder. You literally have to change how you see reality. The text contrasts two views. On one side, you have earthly common sense, which is a materialist view. In this mindset, we're all separate, the physical body is all there is to the self, so naturally everyone else is a competitor. But the author challenges us to swap that out for a spiritual view. In this new paradigm, we aren't isolated at all. We are deeply connected, eternal parts of a unified life force. The argument here is that as long as we cling to the materialist, me versus the world view, finding lasting peace is just impossible.
Which leads us directly into section 3, the giant tree of life.
So how exactly does the author visualize this massive spiritual worldview? The text paints this incredibly majestic picture. It says, and I quote, "In the universe there grows a single tree of life, the great tree of life." It's a beautiful metaphor, and the author points out that this isn't even a brand new idea. It actually echoes ancient mythologies from all over the globe. Think of the world tree, Yggdrasil, in Norse mythology, or similar concepts in ancient Chinese or Mesoamerican cultures. The text proposes that these weren't just made-up stories. They were early glimpses into the actual spiritual structure of our cosmos. Let's actually map this cosmic tree out, step by step, exactly how the source material describes it. First, at the very, very bottom is the root, the ultimate source of all spiritual energy. From that single root, the tree splits into giant branches. The text aligns these massive branches with the major global religions and the spiritual origins of entire nations. As you trace it further up, you reach the small branches, which represent tighter, close-knit soul groups. And finally, way out at the very tips of those branches are the leaves. And those leaves, they represent us. Individual human lives currently living out our days on Earth. Now let's look a little closer at that foundational root. The text identifies this root with a specific theological concept it calls el cantare. According to the author, el cantare is the absolute source of all life on Earth. It's the fundamental spiritual entity from which all this cosmic energy flows, upward and outward, filling the branches and the leaves. It's the grand unifying point of the entire system. And the huge takeaway here is that because everything, literally everything, stems from this single root, nothing in the universe can ever be truly separate.
Section 4, humans as leaves and love. Okay, let's zoom all the way back in from that macro universe view down to the micro level. The text gets really specific about how these cosmic branches subdivide down to the individual self. It describes how a single small branch tip typically holds a cluster of about 6 leaves. It refers to these intimate clusters as soul siblings. There's a main body acting kind of like a control tower, with branches extending into individual lives. The crucial thing to understand here is that when you look at yourself, you aren't an independent, standalone tree. You are one leaf deeply connected to a specific twig, literally sharing lifeblood with the leaves right next to you.
And this leads us to a really fascinating redefinition within the text. We all know the word soulmate, right? In pop culture, that's just your romantic partner. But the author's definition is way broader and far more structural. In this view, a soulmate is someone who shares your exact spiritual branch. These are souls you have deep, historical ties with across past lives, who incarnate into the world around the same time you do, specifically to back up your life mission. So your soulmate might be your spouse, sure, but it could just as easily be a best friend, a colleague, or a family member.
Now, think about how brilliantly this shifts how we handle that problem of toxic relationships we started with. If you adopt this spiritual worldview, the game changes entirely. The text argues that if we are all leaves on the same cosmic branch, if we literally share the exact same root life force, then jealousy, individualistic competition, and hatred, they make absolutely zero sense. Hating your neighbor is literally like your right hand attacking your left hand. The text emphasizes that in this interconnected reality, the only logical way to exist is through mutual support and love. It completely dismantles the hellish human interactions mentioned back in the earlier chapters. Finally, Section 5. Discard attachments. Live truly. So, what's the ultimate takeaway? How does adapting this giant tree of life worldview actually change how you and I should live every single day? The source text offers a few final prescriptions. First, if we are eternal leaves on a cosmic tree, we have to discard our superficial earthly attachments. We've got to let go of our obsessions with temporary status and material wealth. Second, we need to embrace what the text calls the superiority of faith, recognizing that the spiritual reality is actually more real, more permanent than the physical one. Third, we have to trust in the law of compensation. This means trusting that true spiritual effort is always recognized by the universe, even if we don't get the earthly rewards we want. And lastly, it challenges us to open our spiritual eyes, overcome our petty individualism, and live a true, authentic life guided by this massive, interconnected reality. I want to leave you with the provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. Think about a really difficult relationship you have in your life right now, someone who gets under your skin. How would your daily interactions with them change today if you truly viewed that person not as a competitor, but as a leaf on your exact same branch? It's a massive paradigm shift, and applying it takes immense courage, which is exactly why the text is called The Laws of Courage. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored this amazing source material. Keep learning and keep looking for those deeper connections.